Welcome to Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Our service today is called There is a Love Holding Us. Good morning. Come on, we can do better. Good morning. All right, I like that. Let's get some energy going here. All right. My name is the Reverend Dr. Susanna Trilligator. My pronouns are she and hers, and I welcome everyone to our church this morning. We are a church of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. All who share our values are welcome among us. Oh, it is good to see women back in the church. Last Sunday was a little bit scary. We did not know what to do with ourselves. So it's good to see you, and congratulations on a record-breaking retreat. More than 40 women went to Cape Cod last weekend, and I hear they had a fantastic time, so congratulations. I have a photo up here of another church thing that happened yesterday. 25 of us went on a tour of the Royal House and Slave Quarters in Medford, and I tell you, I don't have words for it yet, so I really recommend that to everybody. Maybe we need to do another guided tour next year. It is amazing to think that enslaved people lived here, so close to us for 40 years, and that institution is so deeply tied in with our institutions today. Today in coffee hour, we will be writing letters to voters. So like we did a couple weeks ago, this time we'll do it in coffee hour if you'd like to do that. Our annual meeting is coming up this Wednesday at 7 p.m. here in our sanctuary. Please come and vote on our budget and on our bylaws and let your voice be heard in our church decision making. We are a democracy. Thank the Lord. We've got an open question about whether or not we will meet this summer. The last couple of years, we've been gathering for activities on Sunday mornings throughout the summer, and we are looking for somebody who might want to help organize that. So if you have a little time and a little bandwidth, please let me know. Let's see. Also, we have if you've been to church the last few weeks, you've noticed that we've added in this new little sung doxology based on the words of our new mission and vision. The words were written by our president, Jenny Wengrovius. If you have any feedback about that, if you like it, if you don't like it, I'd love you to reach out to the chair of our worship committee, Karen Gabler. Karen, tell everybody where you are. There's Karen. Or anything worship related, please reach out to Karen with your thoughts and ideas. Our worship theme for May is pluralism, which is one of our new UUA values. This is the text that goes along with it. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible church search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. That's one of the values we'll be voting on at GA next month, and we are still looking for delegates who might want to represent this church. It would be easy peasy to do this year because the whole GA is online, so you can do it from the comfort of your own sofa or your desk. If you're interested, please let Jenny or Liz or any member of the board know about that. Quick thank you to our helpers today. Our coffee hour hosts are Paul and Michelle. Thank you for doing that. Our usher is Mary Ellen. Our greeter is Kathy Sang. Is not Kathy Sang. It's Nancy Nichols, isn't it? Taking Kathy's place. Thank you, Nancy. Now, let us turn and welcome one another to worship this morning. Say hello to the people on your right and the people on your left and the people in front of you and behind you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Mother's Day, one and all. Thank you for being here today. I call us to worship this morning. Oh, no, before that, we have an announcement. I don't know how I got past this. A special announcement from the clerk of the board, Gretchen Locke. Thanks, Gretchen.
Good morning. So this is kind of the official notice to the congregation of the annual meeting that we'll be holding this week. So this is kind of required by our bylaws that I read this to you. So the 2024 annual meeting of the Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church will be held on Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the sanctuary and on Zoom. The purpose of the meeting is to receive reports from the officers and committees, to elect officers, directors at large, chairpersons of committees, trustees, and a nominating committee, to adopt a budget, and to transact such other business as may legally and properly come before it. All are welcome to attend. So we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks.
Gretchen. Now I call us to worship this morning with these words from the late Reverend Mary J. Harrington, who once served the nearby congregation in Winchester. We come together today in praise and thanksgiving for the gift of life itself. Someone gave birth to us, and some of us have given birth. All of us have been mothered in our time. All of us have mothered. Let our time today be one of recognition that we arrive from so many places, joy and delight, wistfulness and longing and worry, unmet needs and unfulfilled dreams, loss and sorrow, loss and emptiness, loss and regret. All that life is made of, mothers are made of too. Today we sing the songs of so many. Mothers who are single parents, foster parents, mothers who relinquished their young out of necessity, mothers who found their heart in adoption, mothers who left their children in 1,000 ways, mothers who rejoice and mothers who mourn. We sing the songs of the grandmother, the auntie, the classroom teacher, the Sunday school teacher, the babysitter, the neighbor with endless cookies and time. There is a kind of love we cannot live without. It is never too late, no matter our age or situation. We sing a song of gratitude for all the moments of being known, being cherished, being found. Now we light the symbol of our faith, the flaming chalice. Here to do it for us this morning is Vincent Roger. Vincent, please come up.
Good morning. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing our proposed mission doxology. The words are up on the screen. Gather, give, inspire, transform, through faith, through love and generosity, to grow in spirit and heal hearts, to transform lives and community.
Thank you. Now, please remain standing as we'll join in our opening hymn now. Our choir is going to lead us in a special song this morning.
Hi, folks. We'll do this as a round this morning. First, we'll sing through the entire form of the song, 2 verses. And then those of you who are on the far right side of the congregation will follow Corey. Those of you who are center right, please follow Karen. Those of you who are center left, follow Randall. And those of you who are on the far left over here, please follow Allison. Thank you. We'll sing it twice through as a round as well.
Thank you, thank you. We're going to have to do that one more often, I think. I love it. Well, now it's time for our story. I invite the young and the young at heart to come forward and sit with me. I need to see the screen, I think, for this one to make sure we're in sync. So if you want to come and sit with me, that's great. Now, this story is called The Boy and the Ocean by Max Lucado. And before I start, I just have a reminder that our theme this month is pluralism. And that means that we all have many different ideas about God and about the universe. And we all believe that there are lots of different systems of belief that are good and right and true and holy. And we respect our right to all have different ideas. So this book is a book about God and about God's love specifically. So you're going to hear some things that are from a certain perspective, and you get to decide if you believe that. Because we believe in pluralism. So let me start this out again. This is called The Boy and the Ocean. The little boy rolled over in his bed and opened his eyes. Through his window, he could see the ocean. Big and blue, rolling waves, water crashing on the beach. The little boy stood at the window and searched for the end of the ocean. He could not see it. "Would you like to play in the ocean?" his mother asked. The little boy stood at the edge of the water with his mother. She took his hand and they waded into the surf. When the water covered his feet, he looked up at her. When it reached his knees, he took a breath and squeezed her hand. When the wave rushed against his chest, she laughed, and he did too. Then the two sat in the sand and let the waves splash all around them. "God's love is like the ocean, my little boy," she said. "It's always here, it's always deep, it never ends. God's love is special." That night, the little boy slept with the sound of the ocean in his ears. Isn't that a pretty painting? The next day, the little boy looked out of a different window at the mountains, high and tall, white-tipped, touching the clouds. The little boy looked from side to side to see the end of the mountains. He could not see it. He could see the trees growing among them. He could see the snow glistening on top of them. He could see the birds flying around them. But he couldn't see the end of the mountains. "Would you like to hike the mountains?" his father asked. He took the little boy's hand, and together they started up the mountain trail. When the leaves scattered over the boy's feet, he looked up at his father. When the wind shook the tall trees, he took a breath and he squeezed his father's hand. When they looked out over the great valley, the father smiled, and the boy did too. The two sat on a rock and looked all around them. "God's love is like the mountains, my little boy," the father said. "It's always here, it's always big, it never ends. God's love is special." That night, the boy slept with thoughts of the mountain in his dreams. See that? He's riding on an eagle. That looks pretty cool. That's a good dream to have. The next day, the boy ran on the beach and swam in the water. He chased his puppy up the mountain trail and looked for flowers. When the day ended, he and his parents lay on the grass and looked at the night sky. Stars were everywhere, twinkling, shimmering, diamonds in the dark. He looked as far as he could see to see the end of the sky, but he couldn't see it. He could see the moon, yellow and round. He could see the clouds, puffy and fat. He saw a star race from one side of the sky to the other side, but he couldn't see the end of the sky. "Would you like to count the stars?" his mother and father asked. So they tried. 12 over there, 24 over there. There were too many. When they reached 100, the boy looked up at his mother. When the wind turned chilly, his father held him close. His parents looked up into the big sky and became quiet, and so did he for a long while. But then the boy spoke. "God's love is like the night sky," he said. "It's always here. It's always big. It never ends. God's love is special." Well, I wonder what you think of that story. Maybe you can talk about it in your class today. Thank you so much for all your good listening. And now you can go downstairs, or you can go back and sit with your parents. You're welcome to do either one. Every Sunday in our worship service, we set a time in the center of our service for quiet, for meditation, for the spirit of prayer, a chance to reconnect with our inner selves or our highest ideals or our own sense of the holy, however it is we understand that. Let's begin this time by closing our eyes if we want and breathe deeply. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your body sinking into your seat. Keep breathing. In our meditation time, we'll join in our centering song, then we sit for a few minutes of shared quiet, then we speak to one another of our joys and sorrows, and then I will lead us in prayer. The centering song for the month of May is based on a famous quote from Theodore Parker, an important 19th century Unitarian, and I think it captures our theme of pluralism. Is number 1058 in the Teal hymnal, but it'll also appear here on the screen. Please remain seated and join in as you like. Let the song gently guide you into our time of quiet. It is our tradition in worship to share with one another our joys and sorrows. We share so that we may get to know one another better and companion each other on this journey called life. Well, that was a lot of lovely joys today. If you would please go ahead, Mary Ellen, and light the other candle to symbolize all of our joys, those spoken and unspoken this morning, as a reminder to all of us to feel gratitude in our hearts and express it in the world for all of the many, many blessings in our lives. If you would, please join me as you feel comfortable in the spirit of prayer. This prayer is called Those Who Gave Us Life. It was written by Reverend Linda Hart, our UU minister in Port Townsend, Washington. At the end of the prayer, you'll have a chance, if you like, to add in a name out loud of someone you are thinking of today. From where have we come, this breath, these fingers, a heart that opens and closes, opens and closes? What is it that has made this body, feet and legs, hair and teeth? We come into consciousness in the middle of the story. The world and its vast life reaches far before we knew and grasps at a future that we cannot see. And here we are, living these days for better or for worse. Whatever acts of chance occurred to bring us to birth, whatever happenstance laid this particular path for our lives, in these moments of calm and stillness, let our hearts open in gratitude for the gifts that can be found along the way, for love given sweet and free, for the peace of the morning and the warm colors of the sunset, for the grace of companions and moments of ongoing birth as our hearts are renewed, and for those who have offered us the gift of mothering, no matter their age or gender, those who have tended and cared, who have offered support and comfort, who have companioned us, those who have given us life by birth or by their presence in our lives. Recognizing the grief that often comes with such memories, let us open in compassion for our broken hearts, for lost mothers, mothers who could not love us as we needed, mothers who abandoned us, and especially for those whose longing for children was never met. In the stillness of these moments, I invite you to speak aloud the names of those who have given you life, who have companioned you, who are held in your heart this day. Amen.
Now is the time for our offertory. Our church is a self-supporting organization funded by your generous annual pledge. You may also contribute to our weekly collection plate, which we split every month with a deserving cause. Folks on Zoom can donate either way using the orange button at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. For the month of May, the Giving Beyond Our Walls recipient is City Reach, the overnight outreach program our youth have participated in several times in recent years. A program of Common Cathedral, City Reach gives kids a chance to learn directly from people impacted by homelessness and to share with them our donations of clothing and food.
Yesterday, for the very first time this year, I smelled lilacs. Have you guys smelled them yet this year? That smell, it just takes me right back. I was suddenly transported back to childhood, to all those Mother's Days in the 1970s, when I would break my father's rule by borrowing one of his tools, the scissors or the clippers, put them in my bicycle basket, and pedal down 5 blocks from my house on my bike to the railroad tracks, where there were all different kinds of lilac bushes. There were dark purple ones and light purple ones and white ones, and some of that had a slightly different smell. Some were stronger than the others, but because they grew along the railroad tracks, they weren't in anybody's yard. So I figured they were free for the taking, and I could have as many as I wanted. So my goal was to snip as many as I could and fill my bicycle basket so that I could have 2 or 3 different bouquets to give my mother and smell up the whole house for a week. To me, that was a rite of spring that I observed every year. And then I was thinking about when my own kids were little and the gifts that they made me for Mother's Day. Cards with drawings and poems on them, the classic macaroni necklace, the breakfast in bed with the burnt toast and the spilled coffee. But I remember mostly just how their faces just lit up with pride in what they made and love. And I'm reminded about how much we learn about love, for better or worse, from our parents. And then, maybe at the same time, we might encounter a religion that invites us to consider God as a loving parent, and how those early experiences might influence each other and our spiritual life. How we might all carry profoundly different opinions and feelings about the idea of God as love. Today's sermon is meant to be the second half of a 2-part series about our changing UUA values. But so many folks were away last Sunday at the retreat, I feel like a tiny little recap might be in order. And also because I talked last week about Theodore Parker, who is one of my Unitarian heroes, and I never want to miss a chance to talk about him if I can. He grew up on a farm near where I live now, at my house in Lexington, and he went on to become one of the most influential preachers in Boston in the 1830s and 40s and 50s, at a time when our country was bitterly divided and about to explode. He was one of the very few ministers to take a public stand against slavery. And he went further than that even. He harbored runaway slaves in his own home. And in 1850, when the Fugitive Slave Act was passed in Massachusetts, well, across the country, it was a national law, he founded the Boston Vigilance Committee that actively patrolled the streets, foiling slave catchers and breaking the law. And he was very proud of their record that in all the time it was in effect only 2 runaways were ever returned from Boston. Theodore Parker was also one of the Secret Six. They were a group who actually channeled money from wealthy donors to John Brown's Rebellion, which was an illegal effort to free slaves and end slavery. To me, and maybe to others, he seems larger than life today, this 19th century man. But I know he was just a person like me. He walked down the same streets that I do now. And he was just a person thinking his way through difficult moral questions, trying to find a path in a dark and dangerous and confusing time. And he found clarity and courage. He found it by digging deep into our faith. Last week I shared an excerpt from his most famous sermon. It's called The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity, where he tries to tease out the 2 different categories. He says the transient is what is always changing in how we talk about religion. It's doctrines, theologies, things like this. Because we're always trying to communicate with other people in our time and place, we choose language that is bound to that time and place. Therefore, all our talking about it is transient, tied to a time and place, and liable to become obsolete. As opposed to that, there is the permanent, which is religious and spiritual experience itself, the experience beyond words, the feeling that you have maybe watching tall trees sway in the wind, or waves roll in, or when you hear a baby laugh, Or maybe when you sing a favorite hymn here in church. Parker said that we humans give way too much attention to the transient, to talk about faith and religion, and too little to the actual experience itself, to the permanent, to what he called the divine life of the soul. He begged us to spend less time talking about religion and more time creating and sharing those experiences that make us come alive as people and stoke our passion for justice. It makes good sense. I use Parker and his sermon as a frame to talk about the new UUA values because I see them as similar, parallel attempts. They are a way of talking about our values in language and images, these that are more up to date than our 7 principles, more in line with who we are today than the principles which were written 40 years ago. Love them though we do, and I do, we have to admit that they were written for a different time, a different world. Starting 5 years ago, the UUA board appointed a commission to create a process, and that commission studied our history, interviewed hundreds of UUs, drafted a survey to question thousands more. These values come from us. They are exactly the same values that underlie our principles. Each one of these values has 2 to 3 sentences clarifying the text that goes with it. I'm not sure if you can read them. This didn't print big enough, but the 6 values you see there are justice, interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, and generosity. And as I say, each of them has explaining text, which is kind of too long and too dry to put in a sermon, but I have been linking it in the midweek update and in the worship reminder, and I really do urge you to read it, because I think a lot of it will resonate for you, especially people who love the principles. You'll recognize some of the language. I think that this is an improvement for 3 reasons. First, I didn't realize the 7 principles are in numeric order, and some people actually took that as a hierarchy. They took it to mean that some were more important than others. And so some people really wanted us to get rid of the numbers, and now I see that. What I really like is my point number 2, the fact that they are in relationship to each other. You know, I mean, they're not in a hierarchy. They're all on the same level. They're kind of anti-hierarchical. And they feel to me like they're in relationship to one another in kind of a dynamic energy, you know? I can feel sort of a flow between them. And when you think about the concepts, they do overlap. They do intermix. A lot of what we do is, you know, about 3 different values or 2 different values at a time. And I think this graphic kind of gets at that, the energy of it. And of course, the most important change is love at the center. Now, I know I've heard some people say that they think this love thing is a newfangled addition to our principles. It's too emotional for a religion that really cherishes freedom, reason, and tolerance. But I disagree. I think that this update is a correction because historically, love has always been at the center of the faiths that we come from. Since the day that someone asked Jesus, "What is the greatest commandment?" and he said, "You shall love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and you should love your neighbor as yourself." Love at the center of Jesus' teachings. And then I found out in divinity school that he actually took that from rabbinical Jewish sayings that are hundreds of years older than Jesus' time. So love at the center comes from rabbinic Judaism. It comes from Christianity. It's always been at the center of Unitarianism and Universalism. And it somehow fell out in the 80s, so I'm glad to have it back again. Even Theodore Parker, a 19th century Boston Unitarian at the height of our freedom, reason, tolerance, enlightenment phase, described his faith this way. He said, he wanted us all to partake in the divine life of the soul, and that had 2 parts, love to God and love to man, which is a restatement of Jesus' point, his great commandment. Now, we could spend a year of sermons talking about love to God or divine love and how maybe that's different from love we feel between humans. But do we need to do that? Is that really the best use of our time debating theism? I think that as a movement, we've got beyond that. and that we can say now just forthrightly, love is love is love. It lives at the center of our beings, at the center of this community, at the center of our faith. Where it begins, where it ends, it's all the same. What matters, more than theologizing or theorizing about it, is that we do it. These new UUA values are very much like our new church mission and vision. They are tools to help us clarify and communicate. Fantastic new tools. It's like getting a new laptop or a new phone. When you unwrap them, you go, oh, this is beautiful. But then you realize it's empty. The actual magic happens when you use it to create, to express, to build, to do. These tools, these faith statements are here to help us see more clearly what we value, discuss it, set objectives and goals, so that we can get together as a team, rowing together in the same direction. And that's what matters, using the tools. Personally, I love this flower thingy. You know me. I would put it on our website. I'd put it on a banner out in the front lawn. I'd put it on a hat, on a t-shirt, on a jacket. I'd wear it every single day. I would and I will, so don't tempt me. I even made a little pinwheel. It doesn't spin, it's kind of glued together. But there's a lot of different things that we could do with this to help us learn and remember and enjoy, I think, this wonderful new graphic. But all that to say that all of these beautiful things don't matter a damn bit if they're just a new combination of words on a page. I would look like an idiot wearing the shirt and the jacket if we're not living it out. If we let it just be something transient, then it is useless and we'll just throw it away again in 20 years or 10. It's up to us to make it permanent. The challenge here is to live out the permanent that lives underneath this transient statement, to live out our faith the way Theodore Parker lived out his, embodying at the risk of his own life, his divine life of the soul, his faith in love itself. What matters is that when we say love is at the center, that we actually act like that. What matters is that when a stranger comes to visit our church, that she sees love in action here, displayed in 1,000 ways, such as caring for our children and our youth through our RE program, doing anti-racism work in the community, taking action on climate justice, writing to voters in other states, feeding the hungry with bread of life, making quilts for the NICU. This is all love in action, and it's the kind of love that this church does very well, and we should be very proud of. There's also the love that shows up as caring between us, love that we sometimes feel flowing among us here in the sanctuary, love that connects us during joys and sorrows, love that hugs or shakes hands with us in coffee hour, that says, "How are you?" and really wants to know and listens to the answer. Love that phones you up when you're sick or absent for a while. Love that helps us feel like we're walking together on this journey called life. That love is important too. That's what makes a church vibrant and whole. And that love is one thing I think we might be able to do a little better. I'm going to be focusing on that in the months to come. What would it feel like to be known around Melrose as the church that puts love at its center? What would it feel like to be the church where every worship service lights a fire inside you, makes you feel whole and strong and grounded in a divine life of the soul? What would it feel like to be part of a community that during dark times was shining out a bright moral pathway, helping us to do hard things together with hearts full of love? I know in my heart that these statements are fantastic tools. They will help us ground ourselves in our strong values and lead lives of purpose. And I hope that we will use them the way they were intended, to help us find the permanent center, the love at the center of our beings, the love that has always been the center of our faith. May it shine out upon us and fill our hearts with courage. May the love of our mothers and our fathers, the love of our grandparents and our ancestors in faith, the love of humanity, the love of God flow through us and out into a hurting world. Amen, and so may it be. I'd like to close today with a song I love, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. It's number 1008 in the Teal hymnal. Lyrics will appear here, and Tom will lead us. Thank you, Tom. Please remain standing if you would and join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. You may be seated. Thanks so much for worshiping with us today. Those who are here are welcome to join us for refreshments and coffee in Parish Hall, which is the next room over. It's been wonderful being with you. Hello to the people on Zoom. Happy Mother's Day.